Again, with my apologies. Need any 2449 requests? Do we have any public comment?
I received
Electronic or otherwise?
none before the meeting. I don't know if anybody.
No hands up or anything, so.
No hands up in television land. Okay. Well, let's move on. Oh, let's move on to Misha's questions.
Thank you, Director Quilici. My question for this week is about ex-parte communications, and if you guys have any disclosures relating to the subject matter of the Personnel Committee. Since last week, March 11th, 2024, has anybody had any ex-parte disclosures related to the subject matter, including this week's subject matter of paid time off policy? Director Quilici?
No, I have not.
Thank you. Director Stone?
No.
Director Kentosh?
The only thing I have to report is that I did some internet research on cafeteria plans. I'll report that to the board when the time comes.
Thank you very much. That is all I have. Appreciate it.
Terrific. Thank you, Misha. Let's go on to item 4. Yeah.
So before you today is a discussion about paid time off. As you recall, we had a discussion a while back about the various sorts of benefits. Some were cash benefits to employees, some were policy or purchase benefits on the basis of vendors that provided various insurance. And then this is the last sort of category, which is sort of just the allocation of days of vacation, sick, floating holiday, bereavement, and jury duty. So this is the last of the sort of chunks of topics that we had sort of envisioned going through from the class and comp study, at least for the first time. I know there's some questions and some revisits. Yeah.
Was that about insurance again?
There was a chunk of benefits where we purchased a benefit from a vendor like life insurance, medical insurance. So it's sort of the different flavors of benefits. Some are cash benefits directly to employees, salary, wages, overtime. Some benefits are things that we purchase on their behalf, like insurance. And then this is the last.
Class B driver's licenses.
This is the last category or grouping of benefits, which is sort of days that we allocate to.
There's nothing new to report on the investigation of the life insurance.
No, nothing yet. So these are items that were studied as part of the class and comp study for comparables to other agencies. And so in your package, we started off with vacation days, and the way vacation days are typically allocated to an employee is based on the number of years with the district. So for 0 to 5 years, 6 to 10, so forth. And we looked at what we provide, and then we looked at the average amongst the comparables, and sort of on balance, OVSD's 0 to 5 years is a couple of days short of the average. In the other categories, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, and over 20, those groupings were a little bit ahead. And so we would propose to add 2 days of additional vacation in the 0 to 5 year category instead of our current allocation of 11. The average was 13, so we would propose to bring that up to 13 and leave the rest of the categories or groupings without any change. This is kind of at the bottom of page 4, at the top of page 5.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and discuss that first.
Sure.
All right, so the proposal is, the recommendation is by staff that people that have worked here 0 to 5 years would increase their number of vacation days per year from 11 to 13. Anybody with over 6 years experience, 6 years or over, no change to theirs. I support that.
I do as well.
Here. The second grouping is sick days. We provide 12 days a year comparables is also 12 days a year, so we would propose no change for that as well. That doesn't have a 0 to 5 years, 6 to 10, any sort of number of years experience. Every employee accrues those the same rate.
So they're proposing no change, and I support that.
As well.
Same here.
The third group is paid holidays. This is an interesting sort of discussion. There's different sort of number of calendar days per year, and then the specific day that is provided. Some agencies have certain days off, other agencies don't. I think Santa Barbara has Fiesta as a holiday. It's not everybody takes it off, but different agencies do different days. We have traditionally had 12 calendar days, and for the last probably 6 or 7 years, we've had 2 floater days where we didn't pick a specific day. We just said, hey, use them at your discretion, whether that's your birthday or a specific holiday, it doesn't matter.
Bill's birthday, yeah.
Right. We decided we didn't want to get into, well, we're going to pick this day, specific holiday. We would give the floater days and allow people the flexibility to use them. They provide it on January 1st of the year. It's a use it or lose it by the end of the year. Allison keeps track of them and sends out a notice toward the end of the year and says, hey, you still have 1, you still have 2, whatever, schedule them accordingly. So when we did sort of the comparison, we found that other agencies were kind of doing the same thing with some vacation day or some specified holidays and some floaters. The average overall was 12 days specified like us, but instead of 2 days floater, the comparables had 4 days of floater. So we would propose changing to 4 days of floater, adding 2 days of additional holiday, but they would be used at the employee's discretion. There's no banking of them. They don't carry over. It's a use it or lose it on an annual basis, sort of a proposal.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, I have a couple questions. The Friday after Thanksgiving, is that one of our floater days or one of our scheduled days?
It's one of our scheduled days.
And is there any advantage to us as a district or to our employees between having an additional floating holiday or an additional day of paid vacation? What are the economic ramifications? Is it one or the other the same?
It's all the same. It's all the same. Employees put it on their time card as 8 hours off work. If they're using a vacation day, they get paid their rate of pay per hour. If they take a holiday, it's the same. They get paid their rate of pay per holiday. So it's whether you take a floater, actual holiday, or a vacation day, the pay is the same. The financial impacts to the district the same. There is the subtleness of more days off equals slightly less productivity because people aren't working that day, of course. We still have full operations going. So if you're on call or there's an emergency or there's an alarm, there's full response, by whoever is needed at whatever time. So there's no change in work other than, 2 more hot floater days that everybody has off, rather than working in some slight difference in productivity, no economic change.
Is there any difference as far as noticing? I mean, evidently the floating vacation day or floating holiday days used within the year, but regular vacation be carried over to the next year.
Yes.
Is there any ramification for PERS retirement?
No, there's no accounting for this in PERS. PERS only looks at base salary in terms of calculating your base salary income as it relates to your retirement. If you took a vacation day, you worked 1 day, or it was a holiday, there's no change in the base salary because all those are paid days off. And so it doesn't change the PERS retirements at all.
we have any policy for people that when they finally retire, they have 100 hours of stored up vacation time, they can, work and use it up to the end of that? Or when they retire, do you just give them a lump sum for that? How does that work?
So we've had it happen both ways. So when you retire, you get paid for whatever days you have accrued on vacation at your current rate of pay. So if you have 100 days off, it's actually calculated in hours. If you have 100 hours off times your rate of pay, that you get a check that is income, IRS income, and you pay taxes on it. It doesn't change your PERS numbers at all, but you get
Those hours became more valuable over time.
So if you accrued a vacation hour or day, 8 hours in one fiscal year, and there was a COLA or a step increase in your based on your performance review and your step increases for your salary, those hours get paid at whatever your current rate of pay is. Sick time does not get paid out when you leave. Sick time gets converted to PERS time. And so if you have, I think it's a 50%. So if you have 1,000 hours of sick leave accrued on the books, you get the equivalent number of days of 500 hours worth of PERS time. That's all specified in our PERS contract. And so this isn't this is an OVSD policy, but it was adopted policy at the time when we signed our PERS contract. It goes way, way, way back. You don't get to sort of change the PERS contract on an annual basis. It's the foundational contract at the time you enrolled in PERS as an agency, not as a person.
Do other agencies have different numbers with their PERS contracts?
Yes. This goes back to this. Brenda and I had a conversation years ago, but when the four agencies merged in 1985, they took everybody's different benefits packages and everybody's different ordinances of rules, and they merged them into one. And certain agencies had different sort of rules in terms of our code of regulations, and certain agencies had different rules as it relates to PERS. I think one of the agencies still paid Social Security, and one of them was on PERS without Social Security, and so the decision was made, we're going with PERS and no Social Security. So all of those sort of foundational relationships go back to 1985. Nothing's changed really since then. It's just you start and that's the contract.
Just my perspective is if there's really no difference between 2 days of floating holidays and 2 days of vacation time, it seems like adding an extra 2 days of vacation time would give our employees the most flexibility, because if they want, like for our honeymoon, my wife and I drove 4 weeks off. We drove across the country to Florida and back, and we have Niagara Falls, and we have that flexibility because we have the vacation time. So do you have strong feelings one way out, or do you know whether our employees would prefer one or the other?
Well, I guess I would, and this is anecdotal, a couple of things. One, if the comparables say the differences between 10 and 2 are current and the comparables of 10 and 4, that it would make more sense long-term to have the days on the floater, because then the comparable of days, holidays plus floaters sort of matches the comparables. If it didn't match, somebody would say why, and we'd have to remember, well, we gave them 2 days, but we put it over here. That's one thing. The second thing is if you provide more vacation days, then there is sort of a subtle, maybe not so subtle, it'd be hard to calculate, I guess, financial burden on the district, in that those days carry over forever and become a financial liability that somebody may pay out in 5, 10, or 15 years. And they can take these 2 days from every year from 10 years, and that's 20 extra days of pay that they would get at the cash out of when they left. I think the third piece of the equation is that many of our employees, almost all of our employees, and I don't want to take anything away from their individual choices, but we have a lot of people with very high balances of vacation and sick. And so adding more to those days, I'm not sure actually
Carry over.
just carry over. They don't actually get used. I would say sort of my preference would be give them the floater days. Yes, they have to get used in the year, but it almost guarantees that the people are going to take them off that year and get the benefit of being off of work for whatever reason they chose. So it's almost like a forced vacation day because, and I think there's some value to that, to say, hey, take some time off, go recharge. Take, you know, you want to take Christmas Eve off. We don't give, you know, depending on when the day is, we don't give Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas as vacation days. But a floater could be used in that regard. If someone was traveling over the holidays, they could stack up a day or two and say, hey, I'm going to go. So I see it both ways. I see the flexibility of giving them the vacation days. I see the financial liabilities long-term. I see the saying, hey, use them, take some time off, enjoy your family. I see the whole spectrum. I don't really have a strong preference one way or the other, but that's just sort of the spread of the issue.
I think for new employees who are still accruing time at a slower rate, and I think for employees who have depleted their bank for some sort of reason, for a leave or something like that, I think floating holidays have more value to them because they're advanced time. They're not accrued over time. So if they want to take 2 or 3 days off, it's easier for them to do that because we give it to them at the beginning of the year in full increments. They're not waiting for it to accrue so they can take time off. So it allows them to take time off without accruing.
2 hours appears in the bank on January 1st.
Correct. But your actual annual time is accrued per pay period. So until you have it, you can't use it. So there is some value in being advanced that time at the beginning of the year.
Just with the floaters.
Correct.
I haven't heard enough one way or another to give you strong views on either way, so I'm gonna let you guys decide. I can support either one. I'm in favor of the extra 2 days. Leave it up to them how they want to do that.
This is 4 extra,
This is 2 extra days.
well, 2 on vacation, 2 on floaters, 4 extra paid days off for every employee. I'm not opposed to it.
No, it wouldn't be,
It would only be 2 extra for the 0 to 5
yeah,
years.
0 to 5 would be the 2 extra, because after that,
Oh,
we'll fall
okay.
in the same line.
So it's 4 extra days for the early employees and 2 extra for everybody else. We have a lot of 0 to 5 people at the moment,
Yes.
maybe more than historically.
Probably more than historically. I can,
Close to a third maybe now.
3 or 4 come to mind right off the top of my head.
So we're talking about 4 extra days. Paid hours. That's costing district how much?
So if you have 4 employees, 4 extra days, that's 60 hours-ish, times $50 an hour, so it's $3,000.
Not material to the district's fortunes.
No, and the floaters give people the flexibility for, you know, like I said, a birthday, a Christmas Eve, whatever.
I worked 41 years before I retired and I never had floating holidays and I would have loved to have had some.
One of the things that comes up in sort of the agency discussions is sometimes it can be hard as an agency to uniformly decide what holiday and holiday to grant. There is such a broad range of holidays that exist out there for lots of different ethnic groups and races and so forth. And picking one holiday, we're going to recognize this one holiday for this reason over another holiday, sometimes can become a little challenging. And so I think the floaters have sort of been born out of that sort of discussion. Hey, there's 12 that are sort of very traditional US holidays, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, those kinds of days. And then rather than deciding what to add to the list as a specific day, the floaters have said, hey, we're not going to pick days. We're going to recognize that people have different choices on different days.
But here we are picking 2 more days.
Here we are picking 2 more days.
Don't forget, Steve, we're trying to keep up with everybody else. Thanks on a survey of the
There's a market out
other
there.
agencies. And one thing I can say about our business here is that it's highly, variable. You may have months where nothing happens, and then you may have, we're eating away our pipeline and they're working 24/7. And so, if vacation can be managed by the management, make sure people, when they're needed, we can give them that extra time off because workload is variable. Yeah, it might be a good way of balancing life and work.
One of the things that comes into discussion on the vacation days, and it very rarely has it been, I don't think it's ever been problematic at all. And it's one of the topics that we want to discuss when we get to the personnel handbook is how many days in a row can an employee take off just at their discretion and
Without affecting the operation.
affecting the operation.
Don't the managers have to approve vacation requests?
Yes, and what we had proposed, and I know there was some questions about it, was anything over 3 weeks. We've had really good employees plan vacations. I mean, in my time here, we have not had it abused. We have not had it contentious. When it comes time for holidays, everybody talks together. Nobody comes in and says, I want 3 weeks off in December and I'm in first, so I get my time off. We've never had that. Everybody has always said, hey, I'd like to take this off. They talk about it amongst themselves. Can you cover? I'll cover this day. It's all been very, very accommodating here. Not been a problem. But we wanted to put in the handbook, some sort of checkpoint. Say, hey, if you're going to request 3 weeks off, you check in because there's an operational discussion. Again, it's never been a problem. We've had a couple of people who have taken, 2+ weeks vacation over the years or regularly, and it's never been an issue. But we didn't want to be in a position where somebody would walk in and say, hey, I want the next 6 weeks off, irrespective of operations and everybody else. We'd say, hey, wait a minute.
It becomes an issue if management can't cover task load with enough warning.
Right, and there's a respect to your fellow worker sort of thing, If somebody said a year from now, I want to take a 6-week vacation. A year from now, I really want to do this. It's my life dream to go do what I want to do. I think everybody would pull together and figure out a way to try and make it happen as long as it wasn't dead winter in the middle of storm season and, all heck breaking loose. I think the goal is to accommodate all those sorts of things. That's why we give vacation and we accrue it so people can take those trips and visit those places. But we wanted to at least have sort of a discussion when we get to the handbook about, a checkpoint. It's not about saying no. It's about saying, hey, can we get advance notice? Can we work within the operational limits? Can we work within the staff? Is somebody else already off? All of those sorts of things. The goal would be to always say yes. We just wanted a checkpoint. So it's not in here because this is just the days and the allocation and so forth. But when we get to the handbook, there was this discussion about a policy trying to prohibit long vacations. And that's absolutely not the truth. It's really just an operational checkpoint kind of stop point.
I like the part about the floating holidays anyway, because you are giving people an incentive to at least take 4 days off a year. Worked at corporate companies in my time, 3 big ones and a small one. And they always had an informal policy of you should take vacation, but you weren't forced to, other than if you approached the accrual limit, then it was use it or lose it. But this is a little more incentive in that same direction, floating holidays, and I like the idea.
You know, I can support an extra 2 days floating vacation. What do they call it? Floating holiday. So I support it. Bring it up to the industry average.
I guess I just had one question. I don't know whether Allison will know off the top of her head or not. Do we have people that are losing these and not using them?
There's only usually about 0 to 1 a year.
Mostly everybody is.
Use them first, just so they don't forget about them.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're not persistent, like, call it like vacation. Okay,
It's easier to use 1 day than it is to use 2 weeks.
okay, bereavement time and jury duty.
So bereavement's been a discussion point. Up until this current year, the state didn't have a requirement for bereavement leave. If you wanted to have it, you could. There was no rule.
This is part of FMLA.
No, this is state of California's bereavement leave, purely standalone bereavement leave, state of
Separate piece of code.
separate piece of code.
Death of immediate family member as defined by law.
And the state law didn't exist up until this current year. We traditionally, going back quite a ways, have given 2 working days off. That was the policy. That was the written adopted policy. In my time here, I think it's been used 3 times I can remember, and maybe a 4th. And in each of those cases, the needs and demands of the family and the relationship between the employee and the person that passed was such that 2 days just didn't work. And so from the basis of, wanting people to be here and have their mind on their job and have their mind on being safe and alert, we granted a couple more days here or there, depending upon the specifics.
2 more days of paid or unpaid.
Paid. When someone comes to work and they've had a death of a close family member and they can barely function, as we've all sort of had to deal with in our own lives, it would be better for them to take a day off, spend time with their family or their loved ones, rather than being here and trying to stay focused on doing something, that's work.
The accidents.
So I've always sort of taken this approach of applying a little bit of grace to the situation, and nobody's taken advantage of it. It's a legitimate troubling time for people. State law now is everybody gets 5 days, but state law doesn't specify that they're paid. They're unpaid days per state law. We would recommend, we have to go to 5 unpaid, and I would recommend that they're all paid, just because I think it's the right thing to do.
I notice in that one category, don't have comparison with comparable districts.
They didn't do it as,
Have an idea of where they all fall?
yeah, they didn't do it as part of the total compensation because bereavement doesn't have a cash value. And so it's not easy to compare. And because there was no law, it could be across the board. I mean, they could say they give, 5 unpaid days, they could give 3 paid days. You can't really compare them apples and apples because you weren't even required to have one. And they don't really have a measurable value other than to the person that is using them, obviously. And so they don't consider that part of your total
All the
compensation.
comparable districts are going through what we're going through right now to establish a policy.
And it doesn't have, like I said, it's not part of a total compensation. It has no impact on your pay. It's more of a grace that is offered by your employer. And now there's some fencing. The law says you have to at least be gracious with 5 protected unpaid days.
Yeah, I support the 5 paid days. I think going through some deaths in the family, I think there's so many things that tie in with not only the time off to grieve and take care of your family, but expenses that you incur as an individual. You have things that you have to do, you have people you have to pick up, and things you have to organize a lot of times. And I think that's kind of slapping somebody in the face and not, you take the time off and we're not paying you for it.
Well, I agree.
Economically, it might be a little tough at that time anyway, so I certainly support that. And I support paying jury time. That's,
That's,
it's important that justice system gets a complete, full, and fair and impartial people. And I think when you don't pay for that, problem there too. So support both of these.
I agree completely on the bereavement. I read all the code sections that were on the back of the packet. I thought it said you're on jury duty, that you, the employee, get your regular pay and you should decline jury pay in the county.
Is that declining, and aren't you supposed to send it to the district?
No, you're supposed to just decline it because essentially theoretically the same bucket is paying you. And so you're not supposed to take it twice.
Doug-
I
Doug-
understand not taking it twice, but I thought that you declined that the money, the $15 a day, whatever it is nowadays, would go to the Ojai Valley Sanitary District to offset the cost of the salaries.
No, we've agreed to pay them as a government agency in lieu of another government agency paying them.
Okay.
we've had a handful of staff be on jury's duty over the years. I think there've been a couple of cases that have gone 4 or 5 days of jury duty. Under the Ventura County system, the call-in, so usually it's people, if you don't get picked, your number doesn't come up during the week. You don't even have to go down to the government center. Now I think there's actually a morning and an afternoon.
It's broken down into 2 sessions.
So if you don't get picked, your obligation is 4 hours, half a day. So we've had people on jury duty for the day in the old days and half day in the current. And we've had a couple of people get on trials for 4 or 5 days. And it hasn't been impactful from a business perspective. It's rare and it's short.
You just don't know about the absences till the last minute.
Right.
Somebody gets
But
picked.
people are pretty good. They announce, hey, I got jury duty next week, next month. Hey, I got jury duty next week. I'm calling in every night. They let us know. They let their supervisor know. They let Allison know. Hey, my number didn't come up or it came up. I got to go in tomorrow. So the communication's good.
It ought to work.
It's kind of just worked and worked okay because of the obligation that we all have and how the system works. So, I think to continue doing what we're doing is just sort of fine.
Every place that I've worked said, if you're on jury duty, take the jury duty pay and then report it to us and we'll deduct that.
Yeah, now you can choose to decline it.
Didn't know about that option, but that way the district actually would have a little bit of financial relief. I mean, the drop in the bucket, I agree. Maybe it's more hassle accounting wise than it's worth.
I'm not really sure. I tend to agree that it's really probably more of what do you do when somebody forgets to do it or one person does it and the other one doesn't? It's kind of, I don't know.
And they know who you work for. They know that everybody knows that most governmental agencies pay. And so there's this, you get in the jury room and it's kind of like, well, you work for the government. You're
I want to say, I'm thinking back because it hasn't been that long ago that I went down there and sit in the room for 4 hours. And I think they announced it at the first to come get this form and fill it out.
Yeah, there's a different,
They named off the people that needed to come up and get those forms.
To decline jury
Yeah.
pay.
I think now, it's been a while since I've been called. I shouldn't say this.
It's only been about 3 years since I was on a
Sure,
jury.
this was probably, it was after I retired, so it's been in the last 6 months.
Thought they had two different color forms. If you work for a governmental agency, you fill out the green form or the white form. So, but the system has worked for us. It's been rare. Most of the cases, people didn't get called because their number didn't come up. They did, they went in for a half a day. A couple of cases over the years, been a few days worth of trial. Nobody's been stuck on one of these 6-monthers or anything. So, I mean, it kind of just works.
I support paid and jury duty. Companies that I work for, private companies paid for it, we're not worrying about it, so the public agency, I think we have a higher duty.
And you don't want your employees strategizing how to get out of jury duty.
We
That's,
still do anyway.
well, some do anyway, I agree, but you don't want that kind of incentive on the books either.
I used to think of jury duty as being like a week's vacation. I had to go back to bereavement leave. So I support jury duty. I guess we're all in agreement on jury duty then. Okay, so keep the present policy as it is. I have some thoughts on bereavement leave, though. I may be the one contrarian in the group. To me, there's two different levels of bereavement. One level, the most common is you have to fly somewhere. Someone has passed away and their spouse has made all the arrangements, and then you have to fly somewhere, attend the funeral, meet with your family, and come back again. But the load of the work is on somebody else. The higher level of effort, like my sister's ex-husband passed away, and she's ended up taking care of everything, going through all the papers, getting the finances straightened out, trying to find where the will was buried, cleaning up his car so they're finding their pink slips, they can sell the car. She's gone through all this, and it's taken her, I think she's up to 2 months already, doing all this work. And so there's not a majority, but a sizable fraction of the people who are on bereavement leave have huge responsibilities. So my question is, if we implement a policy of 5 paid days, but they need more time, happens at the end of, or in the case of the state law, they say 5 unpaid days. What happens at the end of the 5 days if they're just swamped with work? Trying to get rid of my brother-in-law had a Civil War rental collection that has to be gotten rid of. I can't just throw that in the trash. And so there's all this time that's involved. And so I'm kind of thinking in terms of that. When I think of bereavement leave, it's not only bereavement, it's managing the affairs of somebody. And what I'm thinking is my personal thought, let's throw it out there, do we stick with the 2 days? I mean, for the person who really needs the extra time to get there, how do we distinguish between the people that need extra time and people that don't? If we offer 15 days of unpaid leave, because we're not going to fire somebody after 5 days. They absolutely need the time.
Well, I can tell you, so we have to do 5 unpaid period, and you have the discretion as the
5 paid or unpaid. We have to give 5 one way or another, whether it's paid or unpaid.
I look at the times this has come up, and each of them have been very unique cases that have occurred here. And the way I've also approached it is sit down with the person and say, how are things? How are you doing? Is there anything we can do to help? And usually there's a conversation about some of those mechanics behind the scenes of the family and issues. And we work through whatever we need to work through. We have not ever required someone to take unpaid days off to deal with, some tragic moment in their family's life. Nor have we required them to take, nope, you get 5, you get 2 under the old policy, and everything after that is on you vacation. We've never done that. We've said to people, you tell me what you what you're going through, and we'll try and figure out a plan for you that works. Because if you said 5, what about the 6th? If you said 15, what about the 16th or the 20th? I've just said this is a moment in time where someone needs the support of the district and to know that the benefits are paid, they're taken care of, we're watching out for them, we're doing what we can to help them, and what that is maybe at the moment, or the limit is, we're supporting them. And so I can tell you, it's happened, I think, 3 or 4 times, and everyone's been very uniquely different under very unique circumstances. And, you know, we'll talk about it. If something odd comes up, I'll sit down with whoever's the chair at the time and say, look, this is going on. This is what I think we ought to do. And this has never been a problem of the board or the chair at the time saying, no, we're going to take a hard line. It's always been how can we help? What can we do to help this family or this person through, you know, a very, very tragic time. So you can say, hey, do 5 and this, or you can say 5 and apply the standard of being a human being to somebody who's going through a bad day or their family's going through a tragic moment. That's what we've done.
The only downside setting, well, the state has set a marker, 5 days unpaid. We can do whatever we want beyond that. Having a rule, whatever rule we decide on, says that exceptions are no longer fully applied. That's a burden on management. Everybody, I agree with being human and taking care of people, all of that, absolutely. But to the extent that you leave management with the discretion to give individuals more time off, or paid time off, that doesn't detract from their vacation or their floating holidays or anything, you have what some might consider to be equity. I don't know any way around it. Just saying that's going to be there.
I mean, the language.
And it's a difficult burden to put on management. Say, we have set this one rule, but if the situation doesn't fit that rule, then you take the heat either by saying no to that individual or potentially from other people by saying yes to them. That's part of his burden, but to understand that it's there.
I mean, there are parts of this that when we update the personnel handbook, they'll be very specific because the law is very specific now. So as it defines an immediate family member, et cetera, those are defined by law. So we'll have to mimic those in so the language is going to seem very, fenced, if you will, or limiting, but that is, we're obligated to reflect what the law now reflects. So it's,
Have we ever had anybody take bereavement leave where they only took 1 day off?
Yes. Yes.
Even though they could have taken 2.
Yes. And we've had people.
I'm worried that if we make it 5 days, paid, everybody who loses a family member is going to take 5 days, even if they.
Jim, we haven't, and Steve's comment about the black and white and versus the discretion, and the same thing goes here. Black and white, you get 5 days off, I'm taking 5 days off. We've never had those kinds of things here. I suppose they're real. They are, whether you give them 5 and they take 5, or you give them 5 and they take 1, or you give them 5 and they want 10. Those are all real world situations. We haven't had people take advantage of things here. We just haven't. Across the board. It's not to say we shouldn't be aware of it and we shouldn't think about it, and rules are rules, and we need to have rules, and there needs to be, some transparency of the rules and so forth. But we haven't had sort of situations where people are doing all sorts of those sorts of things. Well, I was at jury duty, but they really weren't. None of that. It hasn't happened. And so, yeah, we've had someone who took a day. We've had a couple of bereavement cases where somebody took a day, and then a couple of weeks later, because of funeral arrangements, took another day, and another, couple of weeks, took a couple of days. And so every situation has been very unique.
But also not private, I presume. All of these arrangements for days were all accepted by the folks who would be covering for them on those days.
Everybody pitches in. Oh, you need to take the day off to go deal with the family or the logistics or the paperwork or the funeral itself, or go pick people up from the airport or all. And everybody's been fine. What can we do to help? I mean, in those moments of tragic family sort of gatherings, everybody pitches in too. It's an extended family here.
But saying 5 paid working days doesn't mean that everybody's going to just take 5 days. People will take up to 5. That's what's currently allowed. Okay.
Maybe that needs to be in the language in the manuals is can take up to 5. That needs to be in there.
State says must grant 5 unpaid days now.
If they don't want to take it, they have to.
We can change unpaid to paid, but we can't change 5 to 3.
5/15.
To make 5/15.
When I read this, I was leaning towards some sort of combination where we would give to 2 days paid, then 15 days, up to 15 days unpaid. Or, even 15 days. We're not going to fire somebody if they have to go to Florida and take care of grandma's house or whatever. So I was thinking of having a 2-tier, having a paid, well, whether it's 2 to 5, but then saying that we'll grant some unpaid leave for the people that have a lot of work to do.
Well, people that have a lot of work to do aren't going to take an unpaid day when they have vacation days they've banked.
Pretty much nobody would choose to take unpaid days unless they didn't have vacation to cover it, which in this circumstances.
Loaded to me.
Well, if I'm not getting any traction,
There are other ways to cover unpaid leave.
we have a section in our personnel manual about unpaid leave.
We have to. I don't recall the last time someone took unpaid days off. I don't. The vacation, the sick, the floaters, the holidays are nice and generous that people haven't gotten into those situations. Now, there is that what if. Somebody starts here, they've been here 2 weeks, someone tragically passes, and they don't have enough vacation time accrued to take more than the 5. So there's all sorts of what ifs that could occur where it may put someone in a situation of an unpaid leave, but it hasn't happened yet. And I think the approach we would take is, let's see what's going on. One of the other things we want to add into the handbook is to memorialize a sharing of vacation and sick days. So if someone starts here, they've been here 2 weeks and they have to take 5 days off because they're sick or a family member's sick and don't have paid time on the books to cover it, could someone else share their days and so forth? So I really don't see this problem scenario of someone needing something, not having the time, and having no way to sort of get the support through some system that we have here.
Okay, well, I'll take you at your word that no one's going to take advantage of 5 days. They'll take the 5 if they need it, but they're not going to. Death of a family member.
They don't. They won't if they don't take it. Is your experience.
It's our experience. It's never come up. Some distant relative passed away and they took 5 days off. It hasn't happened. I think.
I mean, if it's paid. If the manual says you can take 5 days off the death of the following people, and then your annoying Uncle Fester is one of them. But you take 5 days off anyway. I still want it to be an automatic 5 days for everybody.
Jim, there's always that risk. And of anytime we put something in black and white, then then there's two things that happen. One, there's a limit on what someone can do. We can tell them no past that. And there's also they can take up to that. And we can't say no. So if you say 5 or 10 or 12 or whatever, as soon as you write that in black and white, we can say no past that. We can't say no up to that. And so there is this, yes, we need the rule. Yes, we need the black and white, but there's also a piece of this that's about respect for the people that you work with and respect for each other. That hasn't been a problem here where people take advantage of other people and say, well, I got Uncle Fester, who I hated, died, but I'm taking my 5 days off and I don't care what's happening to the rest of you from an operational standpoint. It just hasn't happened. It could.
But as long as there is some way of someone taking them off without pay if they absolutely had to.
They can, if they just said, hey, I took my 5 bereavement days off and I've exhausted my vacation and I've exhausted my floater holidays, but I just think I'm not ready to come back to work. They can take unpaid time off. And unpaid time is protected under FMLA. So there's all sorts of layers there's lots of protections. And we need to have something black and white because the state says we have to have a rule. But we apply good order and sort of discussion into any of these conversations.
And we have a provision for personal leave that is not an FMLA related personal leave to address some sort of personal issue. So if that means taking care of a distant cousin's affairs or what have you, I mean, they can apply to take a leave essentially under certain pretenses and we can grant that leave. So.
Well, you guys are happy with 5 days of bereavement leave?
Yes.
Okay, I'll support that.
I'm glad that you brought up donating. People donate floaters,
I suppose
donate vacation.
we can, when we get to that discussion in the personnel handbook, we can kind of work through all that.
Yeah, because I read through the sections of the personnel handbook that were in here. I had some suggestions, but that's a topic for another day, I guess.
I'm supportive of the share. I think that allowing employees to sort of work together and be there from time to time, they're great. We need a mechanism to do that. It's entirely a personal decision to ask, and it's entirely a personal decision to grant the share. But we take no sort of legislative position on anything.
Transaction, yeah.
We just need to book the change because, you're under this policy, it's going from person A to person B, and we need to adjust the balances in the accounting. But I think it's a good program.
I think it speaks to bonding of people that work together.
Sure.
Okay. I think we're done with item 4. What's in item 5?
So item 5 is kind of, I said at the last committee meeting, time to talk and kind of put ideas on the table. The next step for this is we have a board meeting in a week, next Monday. A couple of things we're going to do. First, the entire class and comp study will be provided to you. We're sending out probably Wednesday. And then at the board meeting, we're going to have a presentation by the consultant to sort of walk you through the process. And here's the full study. You've seen all the pieces in these various discussions over the past few weeks. There's nothing new. There's nothing different. You've seen the whole thing. The action from the consultant's presentation is accept the document and the work that they've completed. There are no approvals in accepting the
Policy approval.
not a policy approval of anything in the report. The report, here it is. Any changes that you approve would be done by a separate resolution under a separate action item under next Monday's meeting. So for instance, these items and the ones we talked about a week ago at the personnel handbook, the pay, the standby, the overtime, one more. Those will appear as specific items for approval at the board meeting
next week.
next Monday,
This will be by resolution or just?
by resolution. We have to adopt benefits by resolution. So if we're going to change the standby rate from 225 to 325, we have to adopt a resolution that says board on this date approved a new standby rate of X. So there will be a presentation item for the class and comp study, accepting the report. Then there'll be a second item. That'll be all of these items that we've discussed over the past couple of meetings where there's consensus on taking them to the board for approval.
It's approving the recommendations of this committee for changes to employee handbook.
Then we'll probably need to circle back around because there were some topics that have come up over the past few meetings where maybe there wasn't specific consensus or there wasn't specific sort of recommendations from the committee to the board, to maybe circle back on those items and say, okay, let's go back to these things and talk through what you would like to see, what your feeling is, what data you need. The life insurance is going to take a little while to work out. A couple of other topics. So
Sharing's a good topic to talk about at another meeting.
So there'll be a whole set of things that not approved on Monday or recommended for approval on Monday that will circle back. This item was, are there anything that we've talked about that you want to circle back first? You want to have questions on, you want more data on? This sort of,
Had asked Allison to have an agenda item that's a little bit more broad so we can talk about
that's what this was. That's what this is. What
this is.
What should we talk about at the next personnel committee meeting?
Sort of, and then maybe get a start on the discussions. Like I have a topic. Should I start?
First of all, what is it? Because, so we have to agendize what we're going to talk about. So in case the general public has concerns or wants to be part of a conversation, it has to be agendized in advance. So we can, if it's something that we're going to jump into discussing, we have to put it on an actual agenda ahead of time.
So this is really just, hey, I got a question about what we do on uniforms, or I got a question about what we do on this topic or that topic. We can't sort of go down the road.
Deliberate on a new issue.
Yeah, I can at least present a few information.
Yep. Totally.
Because I'm not intending that we're going to decide anything today.
Totally.
The level that I'm bringing into the committee today is to just talk about, do we want to talk about this?
Yes.
Do we want to table it for
Exactly.
a year? Because I'm perfectly okay tabling some of these things for a year. Some things like the insurance idea. I'm just interested if there was a real simple way of adding that. It sounds like from your preliminary discussion with the insurance company, Guardian, I guess it was, they're going to make a big deal out of it. See, I was hoping there'd be a group plan that we could just.
Yeah. So our group plan was already underwritten. So with all of our employee data. And so in order to make any changes to the provisions, they want to re-underwrite it. So we have to provide all of our information again, which include salaries, titles, employee ages, a total census, which they've provided me the form to complete and resubmit. And essentially that's what they send out to receive quotes from the various companies, which is one of the
It's going to a broker.
correct, which is one of the companies that will review it is the one we already have, Guardian.
Okay, well, that's a level of effort above what I had hoped.
Yeah.
And hope what I was looking for was a simple answer saying, yes, our employees can buy additional insurance with of our employees individually. We're going to provide them a certain amount, 100,000 a year. Is that how much we provide?
But even to find that out has to be resubmitted because that exceeds the levels we currently have. So we're asking for more under our policy. So that is not a simple change.
So the answer is that I was looking for was it's not possible to have somebody within that group plan say, I'm a member of the group plan. I want to add $300,000 extra and I will pay for it.
Correct.
There's no simple way of doing that.
Under our existing group plan.
Okay, well, I'm done with it then. I don't mind waiting for another year, next year.
Oh, cool. I mean, we can submit the census data and see what comes back. I mean, that's not a problem at all. But under our current group plan that's already been set by an underwriter, the answer is no, we cannot modify that.
So
That's
this is gonna be coming up in another couple of months.
parts of it. So our life insurance comes up in November. Our disability portion comes up, I believe, in May of, actually, no, not May. It might be January. They're not on the exact same cycle, but we can make them on the same cycle. Like, that's easy. Don't worry about that. So whatever changes we make, they'll work on the dates. They said that's not a concern at all. The first and largest portion that we're addressing is life insurance, and that comes due in November.
November. Because what I had hoped would happen was that the company has written a group policy for us based on our demographics and everything else, for everybody to get $100,000. I was looking for, if we have that policy renewed next year, it would have the option that if a particular employee had a lot of young kids and wanted to buy an extra $250,000, pay for that him or herself,
Yes.
and that would be all part of the plan and be approved upfront. But
We'll do that, but that's in November.
Yeah.
The run up to November. So we'll definitely include some flexibility in the,
I'm not looking for anything that would increase our costs. It would just give people an opportunity to increase their own by using, one of the observations that I have is that we have this great cafeteria plan. I mean, there's no doubt we have an amazing plan because it's basically almost complete medical coverage for life after you retire, which is really kind of amazing. So we have this great cafeteria plan. Out of 32 employees and retirees, only one has maxed out his contributions to the cafeteria plan. That tells me one or two things. Either our cafeteria plan is too generous, or we don't have enough menu items. We need to add some apple pie and some IC. So I did a little bit of research on cafeteria plans on the internet, and which is dangerous to get me anywhere near Google. But one of the things I found was it reminded me that there's something called a Section 125 cafeteria plan. Is that what we have? We don't have the preferred premium only plan. We have a Section 125.
Section 125.
The way a Section 125 plan is, anything you offer in the plan, it's a benefit that allows you not to pay taxes because your company will buy and provide you with health insurance. You pay for the cost, but it's pre-tax. You're paying for it with the pre-tax dollars. And it decreases your tax load. So it's a good deal. And I made a list of some of the things that they said you could put on a cafeteria, Section 125 plan. Life insurance, adoption costs, health savings accounts, and then care assistance, retirement benefits, medical, dental, vision. Of course, we already offer those, so there's no additional benefit there. Short-term disability, long-term disability, accidental death and dismemberment. And one that might be interesting to some folks these days with us boomers all aging would be long-term care. But one of the things that I kind of realized looking through these plans, one of the disadvantages cited for Section 125 plans is they can be very complex to administer. So,
CalPERS administers ours pretty much, which is why we solely do our health insurance through them, through our 125, because we have multiple administrators, because they don't offer some of those things that are covered under the 125 plan. So we
okay, so could you, for the next personnel committee, could you just would it be much work to make a list of what the options are?
or
Cafeteria, our Section 125.
What's allowed under our current cafeteria plan, compare it to
I mean, I just want to know
might
what
be allowed.
might be allowed, yeah, what might be allowed under.
I think the whole umbrella, and this is kind of, there's a lot under one cafeteria plan. We can spend a lot of time talking about all those nuances, and maybe we specify one meeting to just talk about cafeteria plan, 125 plan, health savings account benefits and so forth, how it all works, how the money flows, how the program works. what options are available. And we can kind of walk through that whole thing.
That would be useful.
Okay, but I'm kind of, based on what little I know, I'm kind of leaning towards doing it next year. I'm kind of, I mean, I'm personally at the point where we've had a whole bunch of personnel committee meetings over the last couple of months. I think we've been pretty intense. We've come up with some really good new benefits for our employees. We're bringing ourselves up to the industry average and maybe even exceeding it in some places. So there's no reason we have to do everything all at once. We can put some things off till next year. So I'm satisfied. We kind of, how close are we to closing the door for this year?
Well, I would say it might be beneficial. So the couple of dates that sort of apply to the cafeteria plan. CalPERS comes up, medical benefits are paid on a calendar basis. CalPERS comes up with their premium numbers in July or the August-ish for the next calendar year. So on July, let's just say arbitrary, July 15th, they come out with a piece of paper and it says, here's the CalPERS premium rates for all these different plans for next calendar year. So then what we do as an agency is say, okay, so let's meet and talk about how much money per month per employee the district is going to dedicate for purchasing those medical benefits. And so shortly after the premiums are published by CalPERS, we have a meeting, personnel committee and a board meeting, and say, do we need to adjust the level of dollar commitment to fund these? And if we do, then those go into effect to be able to pay for the next year. And in October of a year, then there's an open enrollment period where everybody gets to pick what plan they're on and say, okay, for next year, I want to be on this plan, or I want to stay on the plan I'm on, or I want to change plans or whatever. So that by January 1st, CalPERS premiums are in place. The cafeteria plan dollars the district is going to commit to each employee is in place. And each employee has picked their medical choice for the calendar year. So there's a lot of stuff that sort of happens administratively between July and October-ish to plan for the next medical year, calendar year. And so we're working through that every year on a program basis to get that in place. So we can
match with budgeting very well though, because
that doesn't match with budgeting. So we have to sort of make some assumptions on some things based on the past couple of years and watching some dollars. And Allison has some resources where she can kind of
Program choices by the employees. Yeah.
So we can kind of get close, and we've been pretty good over the last 12 or 13 years at getting pretty close to, planning a budget, to plan for the CalPERS premiums, to plan for open enrollment, to plan for the next calendar year. We haven't had busts in that process. So it's worked pretty well. And maybe we just have a meeting to talk about process we go through that maybe the discussions over the cafeteria plan occur in that July, August timeframe when the CalPERS numbers are out for next year. And now we have real world situation to deal with. Okay, here's where we are. Here's the new premiums. What do we want to do? Let's recall our conversation about, CalPERS premium flow chart. But maybe we just have sort of a high level 30,000 foot look at how it all flows. We don't have to decide anything. We don't have to change anything. We're not, making any movement, but we just sort of lay the framework for what goes on in the course of a year. But we can put that on an agenda item and just sort of, okay, have a discussion level.
is there anything that has to be done immediately within the next month or two?
No, I don't think the cafeteria plan, we do not have to do anything today on cafeteria plan. I think it's worthy of a discussion because it filters into some other conversations like we talked about on overtime. It's a big number, medical benefits for our employees, and it might be worthy of a conversation just to sort of tie a bow around how it all fits.
I'm hearing different information here. I'm hearing on the one hand, we're gonna have a personnel committee meeting in the near future. And I'm also hearing that we don't need to do anything for a couple of months, so.
Well, if you'd like to have a meeting, great, we can put something together and we don't have to meet next Monday. There's a board meeting. We don't have to continue our week meetings. If you'd like to go to the board meeting, see how the dialogue goes at the board meeting and then sort of circle back with, a discussion.
Okay, taking a couple months off. I think we've done, pretty good work the last couple of weeks, several weeks.
Yeah.
And I think it might be a good stopping point until the next major event, which is figuring out what this cafeteria, what the health premiums are gonna be. How that's gonna affect.
Next major event for us, board, is going to be the budget. All of the decisions that we've made over the past few weeks to recommend to the board is going to directly impact that
We'll
budget.
direct into the budget. Once the budget is revised or approved, nothing really needs to happen for a while because it will affect.
And we can talk about changes, whether they're through the cafeteria plan or some other aspect that affects the budget. But we can make mid-year changes to the budget anytime we want.
Well, my kind of feeling is that I think we've done pretty good work the last several weeks. Take a breather until management tells us that, okay, it's now because of the timing of certain things like the CalPERS between July and November coming out with their new information. They say now is the time to make more decisions. That would be the time we would meet again. In other words, you don't need to meet just for the sake of meeting.
No.
I don't want to meet just because I did a little internet research on the Section 125 plan. I'm willing to wait next year on that. And same with the life insurance office.
Or until CalPERS premiums hit a level that requires us to do something.
I fully expect, so we're going into July, August in the budget discussion. I fully expect premium increases by CalPERS, they're regular, but they're not uniform every plan. Every plan doesn't go up 2.76%. Some go up 5, some go up 6, some go up 3, some go up 12. I fully expect when we get the CalPERS premium, we're going to have multiple employees that, based on staying the same plan they're on, that they're going to have to be out of pocket.
Outrun the 2297 or whatever.
Correct. The number that we provide for the cafeteria plan is not going to cover a broad range of employee spectrum. I don't know the number.
After we establish the next budget.
Correct. And so we will do some assumptions about what do we think it's going to be and try and get the budget close so that when we have that discussion, then we can sort of address any shortcomings on a basis that we need to.
I have a related topic on this, a very similar issue, and for a future meeting. That is, we are very generous on our retirees. We really obligated to give them the cashback option.
Retirees don't get cash back.
They don't, okay. We'll bring that up.
So at some future personnel committee meeting, we'll talk about cafeteria plan.
Yeah, I think
We have what's in it, what's not in it. And let's worry about a budget right now. And if we have to tweak it a bit because CalPERS has thrown a wrench into the process, we'll do that.
now, all of these CalPERS benefits, the cafeteria plan, the medical coverage, what they offer, all of those are established by CalPERS. They put together this big pot of benefits that they will offer through them. So we don't go create new benefits or say, hey, do this or do that. We go down the menu list of what they offer. So
Jim, for example, mentioned adoption. I
there's a
don't know if that's something that CalPERS offers.
difference between Pure Cafeteria for Health and Medical, and 125 plan. 125 plan is an IRS program that allows you to take pre-tax dollars, put it in a 125
Like an HSA.
like an HSA, puts it in a bowl, and then over the course of the year, you can use that bowl of money of pre-tax dollars that you've put into the bowl. You can use that to do a big list of things that's allowable under the 125 plan. That's an IRS program. So adoption under the 125 plan is not a CalPERS thing. It's an allowable expense that's pre-tax dollars by the IRS. And so we have both. We have a cafeteria plan that funds medical, and we have a 125 plan that funds some things medical. For instance, one of the things in the 125 is you can use that to pay your co-pays and any out-of-pocket expenses. And so you go over here and you go through the CalPERS medical program, and you have some co-pays or some cost shares that you need to do on a procedure for an eligible family member. And then you can take these pre-tax dollars and use them to pay those dollars. And so you're saving the tax increment on that 125 plan transfer. And so we offer both. There's a very specific list of what's eligible, but the cafeteria plan and what CalPERS offers under their umbrella, we don't get to decide what's in that list. That's what CalPERS puts on the list. And so we've talked about internally a couple of times. It hasn't been recent, but we've been through the process a couple of times, trying to get long-term care. And CalPERS has quit offering that because those long-term care premiums are astronomically volatile. So, and they're going through the roof in terms of total dollars. And so if you say, well, I'm going to spend $100 and buy a long-term health premium or healthcare, in-home nurse or home health stuff, they're not sure that it's not going to be $1,000 in a year. So they've stopped offering. They've taken that off the table of a CalPERS funded program. Now you can do it under the 125 program. You can put your dollars aside into the 125 plan and use those to pay for long-term care. But
That's not an insurance program.
no, that's just you're just sort of bypassing what you get taxed on and how you spend it for an eligible expense. Now, 125 plans are also use it or lose it. So at the beginning of the year, you say, I'm going to take $100 a paycheck and put it into the 125 plan. You get to the end of the year, if you haven't used that as a reimbursable for an eligible expense, that money goes away. And so every one of these programs is very complex legally and specified by law. These are not things that are anything that OVSD creates or comes up with ideas. It's we're buying into a program that's set up by somebody else. The 125 plan is an IRS essential system. It's administered by CalPERS, but it's basically you take pre-tax dollars. And then there's this CalPERS pot of menu items that they offer to their people that want to buy it. And so we go down the list and say, what do you offer? We'll offer anything that CalPERS offers. You can come through us and get any one of those CalPERS related pieces. But if they don't offer it, we can't offer it. And if we would like to offer it, we can't offer it through CalPERS. We have to go outside to the insurance market like Guardian for life insurance, because that's not through CalPERS.
So I'm going to count on you to let us know when it would be a good time to talk about
I just wanted to give you, so maybe at some point down the road, we have this program and we'll put together some language about external benefits that we can't get through 125 or CalPERS benefits, 125 benefits, say, hey, here's the umbrella that we have to operate on. But it's nothing we create.
And it's
With
kind,
125 though, you could pay long-term care premium.
Yes.
through a third-party administrator. Yes, because we used to have CalPERS as an administrator you could purchase through, but they don't do it anymore. And it's kind of a tough, an odd conversation too, because a lot of those 125 plans and those cafeteria plans, it's because the employees are out of pocket some portion of something, and essentially the district pays all of those miscellaneous costs, your dental, vision, et cetera, 100%. So there's not a need to draw on a tax deferred account for those things because the employee has no liability here for those. I mean, so it's kind of a,
There, yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's no portion, employee portion for those.
Okay.
Okay. Talk about it in July or August.
You want a break, huh?
Yeah, like a break.
But you know, it's complicated. We're in a whole different business world other than doing business of the district or making sewage flow downhill. We know how to do that really well. We're really good at the business of running the district. But then there's this whole other world of insurance and benefits and all of that is governed by very specific, rules and so forth.
So no personnel committee meeting next Monday.
And then nothing next Monday, nothing next week. Board meeting next week. And then we can circle back if there's discussion items that come out of the board meeting or follow along, we'll go from there.
Anything else? Any member reports, general manager report,
Nothing else to add.
For me.
5:25, we're adjourned. Thank you.